we're at the point now where you're 19, you're fresh out of this marriage that it just wasn't a godly relationship. It's good you got out of that. You're back at your mom's and deep in the new age. So what happens next?
So at this time, during this time, like my mom had actually gotten back with my stepdad and they had fixed things, and my mom actually started going back to church. And while living with my mom, like I was just so depressed. And she would always try to invite me to church, and I would say no. And my mom tried a different way of approaching me because as a kid, my parents were so strict on me. And so she kind of just like gave me a different way. And she was like, well, she used to not let me smoke. She was so strict on me, but it kind of, like I said before, if somebody told me no, I would say yes. So she kind of just said, all right, you do what you want to do. You want to go smoke? Fine. So she just told me I couldn't do it in her house. So I would smoke in the car and I'd play around with tarot. I remember I even got like, I had like an altar, but I didn't even know like that it was an altar.
Yeah.
Like I was into new age, but honestly, like I just don't think that I knew exactly what I was playing around with.
Yes.
Like I would tell her like, Mom, like I can speak to God through these cards. Like it's not like that she would tell me, my parents are Hispanic, so she would always be like, that's of the devil. And I was like, no. I was like, no. I was like, that is crazy. Well, I got really into this stuff, and I would like display the things in my room. And she would come in my room and she would tell me like, I don't like you playing with those things. And I would tell her, I was like, you got it all wrong. I was like, I'm going through a hard time and this is helping me. And like, I'd even talk to her about it, try to get her to change her mind. And she would just be firm on why don't you come to church with me?
Good for her. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like I said, my childhood was nothing like those crazy spots in my life. Actually, my grandmother I would call her my spiritual like mentor because she always talked about God to me and always showed me God's love. And my mom does a great job of doing that too. So I moved back in with my mom around November. The breakup happened in September. I moved back in November. And in December, my mom went to go visit my grandma in Costa Rica. I had lost my job because I was taking care of, that was my job. I was his caregiver. So my main source of income was gone and I was trying to look for a job. I had a little part-time job at a gym and it was nothing compared to what I was making before as a caregiver. But I was so resented that I didn't want to go back into that field and take care of somebody because the person that I took care of hurt me. And I had this like seed in my head or like this thought that would always ponder. And it was just like, well, why don't you become who he left you for? Like, he cheated on me with a dancer and his baby mama and her actually worked at the same club together. Wow. So I always like resented her. I was like, and they also had the same name. So I was just like, oh my gosh, like these are the kind of girls you like not somebody that will take care of you and cook for you, but those are the kind of girls you like. And so it always was like a thought that I had, but I was scared to do so. So, living with my mom, I just knew things were different because I had experienced that freedom of doing whatever I wanted to. And now moving back with my mom, I had rules. All of my life choices caused a lot of stress on my mom. So she decided to go to Costa Rica to see my grandma and, kind of get away of everything that I've just like thrown out on her because the last year and a half was like complete craziness.
Yeah.
So while she was gone, I decided, this was like the 1st of January of 2022, I decided that I was going to go to a club and see what it was like. And I remember walking in, it's like New Year's, and I decided to go to one that was further away. as possible. So I ended up going to this like super fancy gentleman's club, and it was huge. Um, and I walked in, and this is the first time I'd ever been in a club, and I was just like, I felt like a spiritual shift.
Okay.
And I remember going up and feeling just like so uncomfortable. And I went in for like my little interview, and the guy that was in charge, like, to go to his office, we had to pass through the VIP room. And I remember like looking at all these girls, and they all kind of like looked like snakes to me because they were all just like moving on top of these men in ways that like I had never seen. Like I'd never seen a lap dance or anything like that in my life. And I was
I
like,
never thought of it like that, like snakes, that's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is scary. So I ended up coming so late, and he was like, well, you can't start working today, but you're beautiful. And he asked if I had experience because this was a gentleman's club where these are like high end performers. And I told him no. And I just felt like very little. And he was like, well, you can still come and try it. Well, I ended up leaving that day, and I stayed around to just watch what these ladies did. And like they had like a pole, it was a two-story building, like a pole all the way up to the top, and I was like, I can't do these things. Like I
Mhm.
can hardly have a conversation with anybody.
Yes.
So, yeah, I ended up leaving, and I came back the next day, and I came back the next day, and keep in mind my mom's like in vacation, so I'm like I need to find a way to make money so I can move out
Oh,
and do all this without her knowing. So
like
I
real
came back.
quick.
Yeah, I came back the next day, and I didn't go on stage or anything like that. I didn't even know what to wear. Like I looked like someone that was so out of place, and I basically just talked to one guy the entire time, and left after that. And I had made some money, but not a lot. And I was like, okay, well, I was this whole time I was just like observing everything, and I was like, can I do this? And
Yeah.
I realized that I really couldn't do this. And so I tried coming back the next day, and I tried coming back for like 2 weeks, but I would literally drive almost an hour away, sit in the parking lot, and just not be able to go in.
Yeah.
So I would just turn around, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like what am I going to do? Like my mom's going to be here within the next week, and I have bills to pay. Like I'm running out of money." Um and so I decided, after a month went by, like I decided to try another club. So this was towards the end of January, beginning of February. I went to a small club. I tried dancing there, and I told myself like I just need to. I'm gonna hit. Once I get my limit, I'll be able to get out. And I ended up only working there for not even 2 months, maybe a month and a half, and I like completely quadrupled um, what I wanted to make.
Yeah.
And it was just like a different experience. And my mom even had suspicions and asked me what I was doing, and I would just tell her like, "Oh, I work at Amazon."
Okay.
um, well, she ended up going inside of my room one day, and she called me, and she was like, I see all the things you have. You are not working at Amazon. She's like, what? She expected the worst. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, why are you? I changed the table on her, and I was like, why are you going through my room?
What did she suspect when you said she
She
suspected?
thought I was like a prostitute. And I was like, oh my gosh, no. And she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm not doing anything. I was like, I'm taking pole dancing lessons. Like, that's why I have those shoes and that clothes. Like, you are reaching, like, you're being so dramatic.
Yeah.
And after that, I left the next week. I had made enough money that I decided to move to like the big city around me. And I was like, I'm leaving. Um,
How did you plan to sustain yourself in the city?
Dancing.
Okay.
So I left. Um, I left at the beginning of March of last year, and um, at the end of March, I was making so much money, and I had only been working for like not like I said a month,
Yeah.
and
I'm
Was any
curious to ask you really quick. So you mentioned the first time going in, how you felt so uncomfortable. And I remember that feeling too, like feeling like a little baby. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't fit in. I don't know how to do anything. Um, and I remember like the first time I did it, I was 18, and then I stopped for a while, and then I came back to it a couple years later, but this time deep in the new age. And so in the new age, it's all about the goddess and empowering the goddess within. And so at that point, I was able to rationalize it with my belief system at that time, that this was a part of awakening that goddess and empowering myself and all these things. So I came in the second time feeling the same fear, the same discomfort that my spirit felt the first time. But now it's like I have this warped spiritual belief system perspective that, oh, this is good. I'm putting myself outside of my comfort zone to grow. What I didn't realize is that like shadow work that you do in the new age, where you're like doing things that feel very unnatural, is like really just like completely ignoring the voice of God.
Yeah, because I feel like there's definitely signs and feelings and instincts that were telling me not to do it, but I would literally, like, shut that voice off and be like, "No, this is the divine feminine.
Yeah.
This is my calling. I'm" and plus, like, if it's crazy because the people that work in that kind of industry are spiritual, I feel like everybody now, as a person that believes in Christ and fully knows that he has saved me, like, everybody wants to believe in something.
Yes.
I feel like everybody there's always gonna be that void, but until you find like, you're gonna forever search until you find that only Jesus can, like, fulfill that.
Yeah.
So, I decided to move to a big city because I was like, "Oh my gosh, my mom found my secret, and now I have to hide it," and I'm
Get
telling
away
them that I
from
work at Amazon. Yeah, my instinct was run,
that.
because I knew I was doing something bad because I never felt good doing it. Um, and I wasn't even there for long, but the addiction of, wow, I can make 1,000, 2,000, so many easy money a night,
Yeah,
it just became so addictive.
it is.
And and my mom was always a person to tell me, "Hey, like, let's talk about this. Don't do this. There's always a way out."
Mm.
She's a good mom. Out of all the things that I've put her through, she wouldn't really judge me, but she would approach me in a way that I just knew that I was wrong, and I just didn't want to face that. So I got more into new age during that time, and I was all the girls at that job were witches and all these things, like, everyone was talking about their altars. So I was like, "Okay, maybe this is my right kind of people." Like, I was so confused, but also I got even deeper into smoking weed, and I, um, really was just trying to find out, like, why I got cheated on in the first place. Like, what did this kind of environment offer my
Mm,
like, why do men desire this? And then I just, like, the kind of men that would come in there and all that, it just changed the way that I viewed things, and,
I
so
used
this
to
was an
call it an ethnography. Do you know what an ethnography?
no,
It's like
what is that?
you go into a culture or like a group of people and you live among them so that you can study them. Like that's what I used to consider my time in the clubs as. I was like, I don't actually like belong here. I'm just here. Like for some reason I never saw it as my identity, but like I was like a
Yeah.
pass through and observing it and capitalizing on all of that money in the meantime. And like
Yeah.
you said, it
You know
wasn't.
what? That's a great way because I still to this day don't like to identify with it, but I know that it's part of my story.
Mhm.
And but I never felt like I belonged there. And the crazy thing is like even like my house mom and the people that work there always told me like you're not meant to be here. Like they always told me like you're too sweet or you're too good. Like you're
Yes.
this isn't your environment. And I remember, like, seeing ladies there that were, like, 60 years old, and they're like, "Oh, well, you get in and you don't get out," and that was my fear. I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, people get so addicted to the fast lives that they don't get out.